I think being too much of a purist is probably a downfall. You can have the best food and be the best chef, but you might not be the best restaurant.
Jules Mak, chef, restaurateur and creative mind behind Mak and Parrilla. Known for his bold flavours and attention to detail, Jules is as much about building community as he is about building a plate.
If you'd only 3 things in the kitchen to cook a meal with, what would they be?
Salt, pepper, ribeye steak.
Oh yes.
Simple food done well in a nice buzzy environment will always be what I try to create. What colour a menu should look like, or what you should do here, what you should do there. Listen to people, but most certainly don't listen to everyone. If everyone who works with you is just there for a paycheck, it's hard to kind of get motivated then.
The thing about chefs is they're like sausages. Everyone likes them, no one likes what they're made of.
Yeah. Seeing 150, 200 people booked in on a night and knowing that you're going to cook for all of them and please God they like it.
Welcome back to Find Your Edge. We have so many different people on here at different times, and Matthew has, after been talking about you for a while, so very excited to chat with Jules Mack. I'm going to be very honest, I had not heard about you until Matthew started talking about you, and Matthew was absolutely raving about all the restaurants and all of your business. So I'm extremely excited for the next few minutes to chat to you.
Right.
Before I try and describe who you are, how would you describe yourself?
Oh, wow. So firstly, thanks for having me. Not used to this kind of setup, so always good to push yourself into new things, I suppose. Myself, I describe myself here. I'm no different to many others, but hard-working lad. I like to think I have a bit of a creative side to me, and yeah, passionate, love what I do. So that would be the best way to describe me.
That's a nice way of doing it. And how would you describe what it is that you do? You're a restaurateur, you're an entrepreneur.
Restaurateur, own a couple of restaurants in Ranelagh, Mack at D6 and Parrilla, which opened up about 8 months ago. So yeah, Mack has been there 13 years and yeah, just opened Parrilla a few months ago. So yeah, so far so good.
And so 13 years, just around the same time I opened my gym. So that means you opened at the end of the kind of Celtic Tiger period.
It was the tail end of the recession, I'd say, and it was at a stage where every restaurant was doing like a menus page voucher. Remember those vouchers, the kind of coupons where you're giving 2 meals away for 1. So it was a really tricky time. Probably, you felt like a busy idiot. You were working so much, and I was so young at the time, and I felt, geez, we're quite busy, but it's like there's just no money in this. Why am I doing this? So here we got through it all. Things changed, and people came out more, spending a little bit more, and that kind of voucher scene kind of left. Thank God. So,
and things have developed. You're a second generation restaurateur, is that correct?
Yeah. So my dad had a restaurant in Donnybrook back in the day called Farama. He would have had it for about 26 years. So it was a real establishment there, and yeah, I would have grown up obviously going in there to eat and stuff, and being around there in the day-to-days. And I started there as a kitchen porter at about 16, 17, just cleaning the dishes, which is like no joke of a job. One of the tougher jobs in a restaurant. So yeah, grew into, I always loved cooking, so became a prep chef and worked my way up in there, and then yeah, went into a few other restaurants over the years.
Amazing. So you started out, do you think there was a benefit to putting in the hard graft at that stage, the pot washing and the, seeing the behind the scenes stuff from the ground level and building up as now the director, owner, manager of all things that have to happen? Do you think there's that benefit of putting the hours in at the ground level as well? That studs.
Yeah. Here, it's 100%, it'll test you to see if you want to do it or not, because the reality is when you are the director, owner, whatever you want to call yourself, there are stages where you have to get in and do those kind of things, so as opposed to going in, let's say, as just it was my dad's restaurant, so if I just went in as a chef, let's say, you don't see the nitty gritty side of stuff. You're kind of just going in at a certain level. So I feel, yeah, that could make or break you, if you're willing to do that and do the prep and do all the little jobs and you still want to come through it, then yeah, of course it can only benefit you.
What is it about cooking and chefing that I have a few friends in the industry, but what is it that actually pulls you there? What is it that you love? Is it the high energy? Is it the demand? Is it the adrenaline? Is this what part?
I'd say here initially it would have been the creative side of it. Growing up, I would have cooked at home, and I used to get mum to buy me cookbooks, and I'd make a recipe for the family and stuff. So that natural love for it anyway. Going into like the more business end, because the reality is when you're cooking for 100 people or something, it's not like a joyful experience. You know what I mean? So it's not like the cooking that excites you. It's, I suppose, the adrenaline of seeing a booked up restaurant, seeing 150, 200 people booked in on a night, and knowing that, like, you're going to cook for all of them, and please God they like it, and seeing that reaction. Or meeting people out who said, like, oh yeah, I know that restaurant. They're the kind of things that rope me back into maybe doing a second and a third and so on.
You're not still on the tools though now. You've taken more of a overseeing role. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. Here, I'd be in from time to time. Probably a chef is on a holiday, or someone's sick, and you might pop in. But no, I've a little bit more hands off now from the kitchen, but still very attached to it in terms of, like, we'd be meeting with the chef regularly. We, I'd have a big input with the chefs and work with them a lot on new recipes and stuff. So it's not like I haven't just washed my hands of it completely.
Okay. Did you find that step difficult? And I'm kind of intrigued from my own. I love being in the trenches and talking to people and seeing what's going on in the business. And I've tried many times to kind of step away from that and just work on a bigger picture sort of thing. And I've always found myself, for one reason or another, regressing back or stepping back into that role and being so happy there. Did you find it hard to stay away from it? And do you ever feel that pulse, that?
Yeah. No, here, it was definitely, I found it really hard at the start, being a bit younger, when you kind of don't really, when you're learning yourself and you're on your own learning journey of your business. I suppose you're trying to figure out what needs to be done first. So I was very hands-on, and I was kind of probably managing poorly in terms of, oh yeah, move, I'll just do it. I kept kind of saying that. Whereas it was probably since COVID, and then I had a couple other restaurants over the years which have opened and closed. And when you have two at once, your hand is forced to take that step back, because you can't be in one, be in both at the same time.
Sure.
So, you have to employ in both restaurants and both businesses. So that gives you that bit of freedom to take that step back.
Yeah, I understand that. That's kind of resonating with me a little bit. COVID, how did COVID impact you? Let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah.
I mean, you obviously, did you have to flip and transition everything very quickly? Did you lose a business at that stage? You said you've opened it today. So how impactful was it for you?
It was, so here, the initial scare of COVID was pretty daunting, for the first kind of month, I'd say, when no one really knew what was going on. Especially for restaurants, it was like, here, you all have to close, and some of you can open. And anyway, I had a different mindset. I just was like, we did kind of takeaways anyway in Mac, so I just kind of put the foot down on the whole takeaway thing.
This episode of Find Your Edge is brought to you by Hedgehogs vs. Foxes, a video production studio crafting bold, cinematic content for brands in lifestyle, corporate, events, and more. Visit us at hvf.ie to learn more.
And once that built a bit of, like, a load of people got behind it, it was real a supportive community around, like, Jesus, great that you're still open and stuff. So that kind of fueled us to do a little bit more. And it ended up being really good and a pretty enjoyable period, I'd say. Once we kind of broke that fearful barrier, we did a few creative things on a Tuesday. We called it a Test Kitchen Tuesday, where we do a new menu every Tuesday. And it might be burgers or kebabs or fish and chips or Italian out of a Chinese restaurant. And they were like, it was like a real cult following then. Like every Tuesday was like our busiest night, it was a new menu. So just staying positive in the moment of it. And yeah, ended up being a pretty enjoyable time and learned a lot from it. It was like you were just back being like an employee a little bit. We obviously had to cut a lot of staff, and myself and a couple of the chefs stayed on with one or two of the floor members. So it was nice just going in, working. We were home early enough, and made a few bob through it as well. Like, the business stayed open, which was great.
Which is what you have to.
Yeah.
Have you learned from COVID? And one thing, that we all, I think, learned was who our community was and the importance of your community. And I think in a restaurant, it's all about the experience. And I think I'll go to a restaurant because I'll know a person that works there, that owns it, or that's connected to it, and that will be one reason I'll go back. But when that physical premises is gone, and we did see that support for the restaurants, I guess, the takeaway thing. I mean, how have you built your community is probably where I'd start. And secondly, have you learned any more about that importance of nurturing and looking after that community?
Definitely. Well, you saw, like, the reality is with the restaurant, if people don't come in, buy your food, you're not making any money. There's only one route to making money there, as customers coming in. So we found, like, people really, like, obviously people were a bit more supportive during COVID, everyone wanted to kind of see it survive, I suppose. So But yeah, it was really important. Like I did a thing. I was doing kind of home cooked recipes as well, little videos, and people were reaching out and saying, "Geez, it's great. I'm cooking these burgers at home and stuff." And that would then trigger them to come to the restaurant then for a takeaway. So it was a really good way of building a new customer base as well, because we had people travel in from, Clontarf and stuff, which is a good bit away outside of the city, coming in just to get, let's say, a burger out of a Chinese restaurant. So it was a weird kind of thing, which, I've turned around to be like great customers in the end. So yeah, it opened up a huge new customer base for us. And yeah, you have to really appreciate that, because these are people that still come in, spend their money. So yeah.
Have you got core kind of values that underpin now your philosophy for the restaurants or for any businesses? It's replicating what you had at your initial restaurant and rolling that out again. Have you got something that you like, an ethos or a core value that you think trends throughout everything you do?
Yeah, I'd say if I was to pinpoint something, it would be here. The staff end of stuff is very important, and food is one thing, but like getting the staff in to work for you can be tricky, so choosing the right people and knowing the people not to hire as well. So I would say a big ethos for us would be, with staff anyway, would be like, for the restaurant side, then first I'd say it would be very much good food, simple food done well, in a nice buzzy environment will always be what I try to create. From a staff side, it's very important that, what you lack in, I suppose, technical ability to serve a table, if you can have a bit of a chit chat with them and you're comfortable saying, geez, my first night, or I should have no idea how to open this wine, and you can build that little relationship. That's all we want, people who work hard and are confident in themselves and can have a bit of crack with the staff.
Brilliant. So your latest venture is Mexican, is that correct?
Yeah.
And cocktails.
Yeah.
Give us a little bit more into how or why you've gone down that route.
Yeah. So we always loved like diversifying, I suppose. From my dad had a Chinese restaurant, so it was kind of a natural thing for me to open up one as well. But had worked in a few other restaurants, so it was nice to, I've always loved every cuisine of cooking. So Mexican was always one. I always found it just paired really well with drink and an atmosphere. And back to, I suppose, my ethos of restaurants would be that kind of buzzy, simple food done well in a cool environment. So I found, always loved Mexican. And I had a restaurant in Rathmines called Hush. It was a sandwich bar, which we opened actually during COVID. And I had a load of Mexican chefs working there. So I was like to them, here, I'd love to open a Mexican one day, and chatting away with them. And they were like, here, we do a few pop-ups in here. So we ran a few pop-up nights there. They all sold out. It was great. So the plan was always to try find a good location in kind of Ranelagh near Mac. Just, it works well being close to your other business. So it was on the cards for quite a while, but I was adamant on the location that I didn't want to turn down a few. They just didn't feel right. So over a few years then, it did take a while, and found the right unit, and here we are.
How long are you open now?
We're open, we'll be 9 months now at the end of
Brilliant. And it's going well?
Yeah, it's going great so far. It's been a fun journey.
What's the one meal you have to get if you go in there?
I would say there's a couple now. I'd say you have to get the fish tacos, obviously a staple, but the beef empanada, we do a beef barbacoa, which is like a slow roasted beef.
Nice.
Shredded up with cheese and like an empanada with
Okay,
chimichurri. So
I mean,
yeah, really good.
And much of you've mentioned the word creative a few times, and how much of a role do you think creativity has in being a chef, but also in growing your business and coming up with concepts?
Yeah.
And how do you nurture that creativity for yourself, coupled with work?
Yeah. Well, I say it would be how you nurture it, I suppose, is who you have probably employed with you, and that they share that same kind of excitement and buzz around it to create more. If everyone who works for you or works with you is, just there for a paycheck, it's hard to kind of get motivated then, whereas if you have staff which are, let's do this or let's try this, and they, they're throwing ideas as well, that creates an excitement around creating. You talk
a lot about your staff, which is which is great because, you know, sometimes we think that the business is all about us and then we realize that if that's going to be the case, that's what, you know, it limits it so much. How do you get your staff onto that shared vision, and do you write it on a wall? I've been in restaurants where there is like a mission statement or, you know, these are what our values. We do that.
Yeah. So
create these visions for them.
I think if you have a few here, I'm fortunate enough. We've 3 main managers amongst the 2 restaurants. A guy called Gabo, Harvey, and Dave, who have worked with me for a good few years. And yeah, it's just that excitement with them. You know, they love they love the job. You know, they're kind of, I'm here, please God, they're in it for the long haul with me. But yeah, they're constantly like, they're so energetic about it all, you know, which is infectious. Then it rubs off on you because there's times I'm most certainly not in the mood to, you know, create a menu with them or do something creative for the business, and they'll kind of push you to do it, you know. So having those people around you, like the right people, and yeah, here you share a similar vision, and I suppose that's why where we are.
You've obviously got a skill set with people. Do you think that's your industry that you're in, that you have to understand how to communicate with people, or is it just something that you've been born with, or you got from your parents? But your capacity to communicate, deal with people, motivate staff. How many employees do you have in total?
I'd have 60, I think.
So you've a lot of people dependent on you. Where did you learn that skill set, and how did you work in that one?
That would have grown over time. You know, it's only probably since this restaurant, Priya, where I feel like, here, I'm far from the finished article on what you should do and how to run a business, but I feel I've learned so much over the years with opening, closing businesses and stuff, that and choosing the right people and knowing what egos just won't work in the restaurant. You know, so some people have an abundance of experience and have worked in the best places, and I can kind of just tell pretty quickly who's going to be bad news down the road, you know. And it's not always those ones, to be honest, rarely succeed with me anyway. I think it's about, you know, just good people who want to work hard and no egos, you know.
Yeah.
Because it's very like, you know, everyone has an opinion in a restaurant of, you know, what colour a menu should look like, or what you should do here, what you should do there. And it's, you know, you have to kind of have your own vision at the end of the day, but be able to tell somebody, no, that's a pretty bad idea, I don't like that. And for them to be like, okay, no worries, let's move on to another one. And vice versa, you know.
That's
and
huge.
Yeah, so I think I'm pretty open with that. Like, you can kind of tell me anything, I'll throw out an idea and the lads be like, that's ridiculous, I'm not doing that. And
you need people who say yeah, I think you need like, if you just have yes people around you all the time, it's definitely not encouraging. And one thing I've noticed, I'm sure you're the same, if you ask someone for their opinion, maybe this is an Irish thing, they'll default to telling you what they think is wrong.
I know, yeah.
And I notice that all the time. So for me, I've had to refine back who I actually take opinions from.
Yeah.
Do you have a hierarchy again above you of mentors or coaches that you work with?
No, not really. I'd like to be open to it, but no, I don't. I've always kind of stuck with, you know, making my own decisions at the end of the day with stuff, and you have to kind of back that, because I've gone down little rabbit holes of, you know, maybe listening to others at times and it hasn't worked out, and I'm kind of kicking myself. So, you know, what I'd always say is like, here, like, listen to people, but like, most certainly don't listen to everyone.
Yeah.
You know, you have to, at the end of the day, it's easier to, I suppose, beat yourself up about like a decision you made than when someone else gives you a decision to do. You know, it's
100%.
like,
I know. And oftentimes you'll meet someone for the first time, and your first impression, you'll have made maybe a semi-unconscious decision, and you see it translate then a week or two down the road anyway. So so we spoke a lot about in a short period of time about your entrepreneurial success and Jules, the business owner. What about from a personal point of view? You have 2 kids, is that correct?
2 kids, yeah.
How are you balancing work, life, kids, everything else in between?
Here it's tough, you know. Here many have kids, so they'll know. But yeah, I have 2 kids, Josh and Zoe. Josh is 4, Zoe is 1.5. So like it's really tough time around the house. But I suppose the nature of my business is, you know, I generally work evenings, so I am a little bit flexible when you have your own business. Like, there are times where things are a little bit smooth and you can be the family man. And then here I've got obviously an amazing wife at home who is in a pretty high pressure job herself, but, you know, manages the kids also. But juggling the 2, it's here, I don't know, it's you gotta just do it, don't you?
It's like juggling acts.
Yeah, I don't have the answer, unfortunately, for you.
You know,
Got to.
what about maintaining your energy for everything? To be the dad, to be the business person, do you find that challenging, or do you have tools you use?
Yeah. I find that challenging personally. Like again, I do struggle with that. Like there's days where I'm pretty undermotivated and I'm tired. We've been up all night with the kids, or something's on my mind, and I'd struggle then. There's days where I'm like, geez, I can't do this, and I'll kind of postpone a couple of jobs, and I'll put things on the long finger. So it's here. It's far from perfect. What I do and stuff, but you gotta just truck on, I suppose. And I suppose that's where, back to the point of having good staff around you, and good family support. Like my mum was an amazing support to us, and so was my wife's mum. Like they'd be over a good bit minding the kid and stuff. So that would be a huge, like without that I'd be goosed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know. You definitely need that, and you see, as businesses and families and everything grow, you see the need for that community and the people that you can lean on and trust. So have you earlier mentors or people in your life you thought that the experience you had with them kind of motivated you or guided you down this route of entrepreneur, or where did you get this desire to be creating so many restaurants and so many like where's your vision going with it, or where did it even start?
I suppose here I grew up in Bridge, and I went to St. Michael's, and here my dad just had a Chinese restaurant, and times were a little bit different then. That to put your kids through maybe a private school then wasn't as much of a task as maybe it is now. So growing up in that environment and seeing people with their families and what they had, and you are in a fortunate position in some of those schools. So you do look at your peers there and see what their families have achieved, and that kind of drives you. You go on family holidays with some of these guys, and you're like, wow, this is some home you have. So that would be probably an initial driving force for me back in the day. Growing up, I suppose, when I got into my later years, I suppose I did work in a couple of the restaurants, and there was one job I had in a place in Ballsbridge called Roast. It's closed now, but I started there from the scratch and kind of worked my way up a bit there. But we had a really tough head chef at the time. She was a French woman, and I should be smashing plates and stuff like madness, but it was kind of like you could see that all she wanted was like perfection, and although like I didn't see eye to eye with her most of the times, but I kind of just kept shut and just did the job. And but seeing her like attention to detail and stuff was like, wow, that's
how it's done.
Yeah, this is incredible. And here the place was like, it was above a pub. It was a really good restaurant, but wasn't like Michelin star or anything. But she kind of treated it like that. So I kind of tried to I didn't have like a huge relationship with her, but those little pinpointed parts of your life that you see someone do something kind of stands with you a little bit.
I have a friend who's a chef, and he I'll probably get him slightly wrong on this one, but he told me when I one time spoke to him about chefs, he said the thing about chefs is they're like sausages. Everyone likes them. No one likes what they're made of.
Yeah.
And I think your industry, it's a fascinating industry to me, because it's extremely, it's different to mine in a lot of ways, but the hours are unsocial.
Yeah.
You're in a hot kitchen, but like, chefs have become celebrities in so many ways, and like it's a massive industry for everything from the Gordon Ramsays through to the rest of all of that. It attracts a certain individual, though. Do you do agree? I'm sure.
I'd say so. I'd say so. You see here, there's obviously different types there, but yeah, there is you have to be willing to kind of sacrifice a lot, I think, because we open here, we close on a Monday, but Monday's kind of admin day where we get wages done and stuff, so you don't sleep, like, and you could have 100 people coming in every day, and to say that you're going to please every person that comes through your door is just not true. So dealing with whether it's staff issues, customer complaints or whatnot, so there is a madness to the whole industry that you have to be a little bit thick-skinned, I think. So yeah, I back your friend there.
Yeah. How do you deal with the criticism? And I know you have a strong social media presence, and you have businesses that have social media. And like I said, if you ask someone for their opinion, I think they default to find something wrong, thinking that it's going to help you. And you're thick-skinned, that's important but you also just get people who just want to complain. How do you deal with that? Is it water off a duck's back?
No. Like here, I would have really taken it to heart in the early days. I think over years you kind of learn to be a bit more thicker skinned. But here, fortunately enough, like the reviews that we do get are generally pretty good. You know, if if even 20% of them are bad, I think I'd start be worrying a little bit more. But you kind of know by what people say as well. You know, sometimes you might get a private email and be like, here, just so you know, we love the restaurant, everything was great, but you know, the food or this dish we just didn't like, and just give me that feedback, and you know, hopefully be back again. So you know that, like, geez, that's an honest review. But then you get people almost going out of their way lying, you know, to just make their point sound better. So here, is it water off a duck's back? Probably not, because in my head I think it is. But then I'll, like any review, I'll still call a bit of a staff meeting and be like, here, this person did say this, whether it's right or wrong, we don't want this to be said again. So let's just try.
So you're learning.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a nice way to take any level of criticism. Is, you know, is it first legit, and secondly, can you learn from it? Do you have any fears about, you know, when it comes to business and stuff like that? What do you think would be your biggest fear about everything?
My biggest fear, I'd say my biggest fear would be like probably me losing the energy and desire for it. You know, but it's all in your control at the end of the day. So it's, you know, to say that, like, here, if COVID happens again, you know, you pivot and you try to do something else, you know, but as long as you have that energy, you'll do something else. So I suppose, like, if I fell out of love with it, then, you know, what else would I do? You know, so that's a bit of a fear of, like, here, what about in 10 years time? It's just not for me. You know, I'll be 47, and what am I going to do then? You know, so that's kind of something. But in terms of the day-to-day fears of, you know, it's up to you. It's in your hands and your control. So, you know, there's probably no point fearing anything, really.
Yeah. Well, no, that's it. But like, fear does cripple people and stop them forever.
Yeah.
Going from, you know, the chef to the entrepreneur to the multiple business owner.
Yeah.
And I think generally the answer when I ask someone about fear is that they, you know, they acknowledge that it's there, but they just lean into it and go anyway.
Yeah.
And oftentimes wherever that fear is shows where we need to put our energy into looking after ourselves, or whatever that might be. And on that one, in your experience, what do you think has separated? I'm sure you've met, for example, that lady working at a restaurant. You know, what has stopped her from growing from where she was to Michelin star or to owning her own restaurants? What separates the entrepreneurs from the creatives in the restaurant?
I think being too much of a purist is probably a downfall. So we look at people who, you know, are the chefs who want to manage the whole floor, want to kind of do everything, and, you know, but it's a business at the end of the day. So we can, you know, you can have the best food and be the best chef, but you might not be the best restaurant, you know. So you have to, I suppose, grow in a sense of, like, knowing how to manage people. You know, because some of the best chefs are like, you let them open up a restaurant themselves and give them the keys, they'll be handing those keys back, so they'll have no one working for them, you know. So there is a, you know, an understanding you need to, I suppose, run a business, and it's not all just what the food is. It's how you treat the staff, how you design the place, how you manage your accounts. You know, there's so many other elements to it. So, you know, being a good chef is only one side of it.
Are you able to separate and get away from work in the evenings with kids and with the wife and with general living, or is it just you, the restaurateur, that also has kids? And you know, can you separate yourself from that? Can you take one hat off and put another hat on?
No, not fully anyway. You know, I play a bit of golf and stuff, and that's a few hours of freedom from everything. But here, when you're at home with your kids, like, all it takes is a message from someone and your head's back in restaurant mode, you know. And the nights you do take off, let's say, like, or if I go home early, the restaurant's still open, you know, and there's still issues that can occur. So it is quite hard to detach. I find the only way you kind of can is going on holiday, leaving the country, you know, because you can't actually really do anything. You're pretty helpless there. So that's probably the only time you can fully unwind, I'd say.
Can you turn your phone off? Do you get away from it, or do you have it beside you all the time?
I'd have it beside me quite a lot, unfortunately. Yeah.
It's so hard to get away from.
I know, yeah.
One question we did speak about that's come back up again is your customers and dealing with feedback and, you know, growing from that. Do you think generally that restaurants, when it comes to criticism, when it comes to growth, when it comes to their customers, do you think that's handled well? And the reason I ask you that is, I've seen chefs, when someone makes an observation, I've seen chefs come out of kitchens and kick off and all that sort of work. I think it's changed now, but in general, restaurants are not great at receiving criticism. Do you think that's because the chef is too personally attached to the food, or is it just that?
Yeah, well, here the reality is no one likes criticism. No one really invites it. And as you said earlier, people like to give an opinion. I suppose from a restaurant point of view, it can be tricky because you as an owner, somebody might say something to you, a dish is too salty, and you'd say to the chef, and he's like, I don't think it's salty. But in my head, I'm like, well, it is a little bit salty, but you don't want to crush them there. It's easy to say, well, it is salty, send it back, but you got to manage like their emotions as well. They're in the high stress environment. So me coming to them with a complaint, they forget about the customer and they'll just see my face, so you got to know which is valid and which is not. The reality is if somebody sends back a raw piece of chicken, it's quite easy to see it's raw. Saltiness is a taste bud's opinion. It's subjective, I suppose. So but yeah, you have to just take it.
So when it comes to we've spoke a lot about your past, but moving forward in your vision for the future, have you got some big boxes you want to tick? Have you got it written down somewhere, or what's your future looking like?
Yeah, I'd have a few ideas and plans that I'd like to, another restaurant would be definitely on the cards, I'd say. It'd be something I'd like to do. And then I have a few other projects I'd like to do as well. But I'd say like long-term goal would be, have a few profitable restaurants and maybe get into a bit of kind of consultancy, or maybe like a cooking school or something like that, But here, let's see.
What does success mean to you? If someone's to ask you, when will you say, yeah, you know what, I'm successful now? Or do you say that already?
No, I probably don't. I don't. I listened to that thing. It was some podcast thing, and it was like, things you wished for, like 10 years ago, put yourself 10 years ago, and it was like things you said that would have made you happy, you now have, but you're not happy, So I would be surprised if I ever was fully like, satisfied. I think I'll always, just nature of myself and my personality, I always want to do more. I always look for the next opportunity or the next window for something. So I don't know when.
Yeah, and that's probably what drives us and gets us.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to someone starting out who's pot washing somewhere now and wants to follow in your footsteps?
I would say here, a lot of them have started that way, who've worked with me, who started as pot wash, and then they go into, a prep chef, and next thing they're one of the main chefs, So I would say, like, first thing you have to say, like, do you actually want it as a career? Like, do you want it as a career, or do you want to own a place? Because obviously if you don't, like, you just won't ever do it. You just can't, So, but I'd say it is very important to learn every element of the kitchen and business. So not just learning the kitchen end and being naive to what goes out on the floor and assuming a manager is going to deal with everything. So I'd say you have to learn everything of the business and put a lot of thought into, I suppose, if you want to do a restaurant, what's the concept, where does it have to be, and really kind of run the numbers end of the business, as opposed to just thinking like your lovely food is going to take you to the moon. You got so many factors: where it's located, is there parking, is the weather, if the weather's bad, are people going to come to this village, so
there's a lot to consider.
Yeah.
Would you be open to mentorship for someone trying to come through the ranks then?
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel like you'd have a huge amount to offer.
Yeah, I think so. Like the managers we have now do want to, open up another one all together and stuff as a team. So here, like, I learn as much from them as probably they do me. They're a good group, and they question you a lot, and they're not afraid to tell me anything, which has its pros and cons depending on what mood I'm in.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
So Jules, I've got 12 quick fire questions which I've not read yet, and that's because my reaction is as important to yours.
Yeah.
And this can be one word answers, or you can tell me I just don't know the answer, and I won't judge you either way, because some of them are trickier than others. So very first question's quite an easy one. What was the first dish that you ever mastered?
It is poached eggs as a kid, but I had a little poaching pot, so it was like you didn't do it the nice way.
Okay, yeah.
It was like you just crack it in, and I thought it was amazing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you hire for skill or hire for attitude?
Attitude.
If you'd only 3 things in the kitchen to cook a meal with, what would they be?
To cook a meal, salt, pepper, ribeye steak.
Oh yes. What's your most expensive kitchen item?
Oh, there's a few actually. I suppose just one that actually means a lot is we bought this mincer the other day because we keep buying these average mincers and they break them every 6 months.
Okay.
They mince a lot. So we splashed out and
Got a
bought
proper
the
mince
mega one.
for
And,
proper burgers.
yeah, and they like, what's actually for all the mince pork for all the dumplings and mac, but the lads love it like. So yeah, I said if they break it, they're paying for it.
Fair enough. Favorite restaurant experience by somebody else?
Oh, this is one you actually get asked a lot, and I never really know what to say because I don't eat out a whole lot. Restaurant experience. Let's go back to that one. Let me think of that one.
Yeah, have a good think
Yeah,
about that
yeah.
one because I'm actually going to take notes for that.
Yeah.
One ingredient that you can't cook without.
That I couldn't cook without. Yeah, salt.
Yeah. What type of salt do you use in matter of interest?
I like the Maldon fancy salt.
The fancy
It's
salt.
probably a bit snobby of me, but yeah.
No, but
like
the research inside, this is off topic.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
research on salt quality is actually becoming really clear. Like
Yeah.
even the pink Himalayan salt, like
Yeah.
they're questioning the benefit of that.
Yeah.
That the white, the actually greys and white salts are much better.
Yeah.
Aren't washed down. So I think salt is getting really great
Yeah.
press at the moment, and quality is extremely important
Mm.
that it's not treated. Describe the biggest kitchen disaster in one sentence.
Oh God. Kitchen disaster. Had a chef burn his leg.
Okay,
Didn't go down great.
right, not great. Most sentimental kitchen item that you possess.
Sentimental kitchen item. We have a tortilla press which presses all the tortillas for us in Parrilla, which broke the other day and like caused chaos
Okay,
because like we were like, where the hell are you gonna get one today?
okay.
Yeah.
So it's funny that all your answers are around your kitchen in work, but none around your kitchen at home. Do you cook at home at all?
I used to a bit more. When you have the 2 restaurants and 2 kids, it's a bit trickier. So not a whole lot. Everything just goes on the barbecue.
Fair enough.
So,
Who's your favorite chef?
favorite chef. Oh God, who do I like? I suppose kind of ties into favorite restaurant. I suppose we'll try merge the two maybe. Favorite chef. What I like. Again, go back to that one. Let me just have a little thing.
Yeah, have a little think about that one. One kitchen habit that makes you a better business owner.
One what kitchen
One
habit?
kitchen habit that makes you a better business owner.
Kitchen habit. I don't know. I suppose I like things to be organised. You know.
Fair.
Yeah.
Most overrated trend on the plate or in the market?
Yeah. Dubai chocolate actually. I bought one the other day in the local shop just because I saw the videos about it. It's £8, $8.99.
I've heard about this Dubai chocolate.
Yeah,
but
Dubai chocolate definitely one on trend
Okay.
at the moment.
Dream dinner guest, dead or alive? Last question.
Dream dinner guest. Who would I like to have dinner with? It would be Anthony Bourdain.
Oh yeah, brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Like-
Well, that's a great answer for that
Yeah.
one. Okay, so if people want to get to any of your restaurants, let's give them all a shout again.
Parrilla in Ranelagh and Mac at D6 just down the road. Hawthorne.
Perfect. And it's on social media, but it's all
yeah.
social media.
Yeah.
Jules, listen, thanks a million for your time
Yeah, thanks for having me.
and your energy, and I'm excited to see some new restaurant concepts
Yeah.
no doubt in the next while.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.